So I am a huge fan of My Hero Academia. I think it is probably one of my favorite anime of all time, easily. But there's one thing that has bugged me about the show since it started, and that is the overplaying of the 80-20 of quirk having people to quirkless people, and how they act like they've never met anyone else in the world who doesn't have a quirk, when it's literally 20% of the population. Even in the My Hero Academia movie, Two Heroes, when Deku meets Melissa and finds out she has no quirk, he's shocked, surprised, and just feels so bad for her. Can't believe there's another person that's quirkless, when he was literally quirkless his entire life. This is normal for him. So I really don't get why they act like no one else in the world is quirkless. Now, I'm no statistician. I know 80% sounds like a very high margin. But let me drop some numbers on you guys real quick. According to the United States Census of 2010, African Americans make up approximately 12.6% of people in the United States. 12.6. That's nearly half as many quirkless people in My Hero Academia. Just so we're clear, that means quirkless individuals are almost twice as common in their world as African Americans are in the United States. In that same census, Asians were less than 5% of the population, meaning that they are 4 times as rare compared to quirkless people in My Hero Academia. I live in the state of Oregon. My whole life I've lived here, and growing up, black people were always a part of my life in some way, whether they were friends, we just went to school with them, on sports teams together, neighbors, whatever. African American people have always just been commonplace in my life. They make up less than 2% of Oregon's population. This would mean that people without quirks would be 10 times more common in my home state than black people. Now, in all fairness, Oregon is not a very populous state. Most people don't live here. They live in LA or New York or wherever, so let's take a look at their numbers. And I am going to continue to focus on the African American population, since they are the largest racial minority in the United States, and I feel present the most obvious point to make this case. So, for the state of California, they are 5.81% of the population, making them 4 times as rare as quirkless individuals. For LA specifically, they make up 8.6% of the population. In New York State, they make up 15.66% of the population. New York City, 25.1% of the population. They are finally more represented than quirkless individuals. This is in no way to disparage or underplay the representation of African Americans in American society. I mean, in Atlanta, Georgia, they make up over 50% of the population. So it's not like they don't exist whatsoever, but my point is they make up less of a percentage of the US population than quirkless people in My Hero Academia, and they're still much more commonplace. I have known black people my whole life. I live in an area where there aren't a lot of them. It's not a rare thing. So why, in God's name, is it seen this way in My Hero Academia? The only way My Hero's attitude toward quirkless people is justifiable, in my opinion, is if that 80-20 ratio they give us is a grossly misapplied global statistic. For example, if quirkless people in Japan, presumably where My Hero Academia takes place, were less than 1% of the population, and there were places in Europe or Africa, let's say, that had 30 to 40% of quirkless population, then it would, supposedly even out. Don't check my math on that because I didn't do it. But if that were the case, that initial number Horikoshi gives us is completely moot, so why even give it? Some of y'all are probably watching this, all 11 of you, and thinking I am reading into this way too much, and that it's just to establish that, most people aren't this way, aren't quirkless. And again, that's fair. But what if I told you there is a very, very specific reason that 80-20 ratio is given to us? That is actually incredibly important, not only in hard sciences, but mainly sociology. This 80-20 ratio, it comes from something called the Pareto distribution. It's sometimes confused with or conflated with Price's law. However, the two are not the same. The Pareto distribution illustrates the 80-20 ratio exists in most facets of life. For example, 80% of all wealth is owned by 20% of people. That's just a statistical fact that exists across the world in every economic system. Another quick example is that 80% of all value generated in a company is created by 20% of the employees. This one is not necessarily a fact, but it does tend to work out once you compare enough businesses against one another. And while this distribution is most often seen in economics and sociology, like I said, recently we have seen this principle applied to human evolution. New studies have shown that the 80-20 rule can be applied to the evolution of the human genome as well. This is why 80% of the population in My Hero developed quirks, while the other 20% didn't, because it's the perfect ratio for how humans evolve. Horikoshi is incredibly well read. This is absolutely astounding. I didn't expect to find anything here. I just expected to rant about how ridiculous this is. But my man did his research. This is mind-blowing to me personally. And, while this does solve the mystery as to why he chose the 80-20 ratio, I still stand by the point that it's not represented well in the show at all. They still act like it's 99% to 1% quirk to quirkless. But it's a very specific ratio they give us, that Horikoshi gives us, and I think that's for this reason. And it absolutely amazed me to learn this. I thought I'd share it with you guys. Well, that's going to be it for me today, guys. I hope you learned something. I know I did, and I know I had a hell of a lot of fun doing it. So come back if you want to hear some more of my thoughts, or if I can find some more fun facts, I'll post those and figure out what's going on. I hope y'all have a great day. See ya.